The views and opinions expressed on this program are those of the participants and do not reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
BronxNet. Your voice, your views, your vision.
Oh, Michael. Can you do a good job, Dina? BronxTalk, the Bronx's flagship television talk show. Please join the dialogue by calling in at 718-960-7241. You can also email comments to us at bronxtalk@hotmail.com, and we'll read those on the air during a future edition of the program. Well, a long-needed proposal to renovate Pelham Parkway has rankled many, including well-known Bronxite Regis Philbin, of all people, because it includes the cutting down of dozens of trees. Quite simply, tonight, we'll review the proposal and examine the possibilities. From Community Board 11, District Manager John Frater, good evening. Thanks for joining us once again.
Good evening. Nice to be here.
And from the Pelham Parkway Preservation Alliance, it's David Varen. Good evening. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. My pleasure.
John, welcome back to the show. I understand it's going to be your last visit on the show. We can publicly announce that you are retiring from that position in January, but we're thrilled to have you tonight. I recall from visits past, and we're talking long ago, you talked about the need to renovate Pelham Parkway. Why do we need to renovate Pelham Parkway?
Okay. Pelham Parkway, the project has been on the books since 1986. In 1986, Pelham Parkway was declared a dangerous roadway, and we've been trying to get it renovated. Back in 86, they drew up plans. City ran out of money. The project never got done. We started pushing for it. The Community Board has listed this project as a #1 priority of the board for the last 15 years. The reason is simple. It's dangerous. People, the slightest mistake you make on that parkway, you're into a tree. The trees are very close to the roadway, and it's quite dangerous. Now, there are a lot of factors that go into why there's an accident. There's speeding, there's people that are under the influence, but there are also people that are driving that parkway that aren't speeding and under the influence, but maybe get cut off and swerve to the right, and they've been in accidents. So we've been demanding this project be done. Now, back in 1996, the Community Board came up with a proposal for Pelham Parkway. We went to DOT, and what we were advocating for was not taking trees down. Where the trees are close to the roadway, have the 3 lanes merge into 2 to make it safe, and then where it's safe, merge back to 3. Originally, DOT liked that idea. Then when they studied it, they felt that it just wouldn't work. It would cause too much of a traffic backup and all that. So now we're with the plan that we have before us today. And
do you think, that was one thing that me as a layman, and just about anybody who knows the area, and many of us have driven on Pelham Parkway hundreds of times, at least, I thought right away, well, why, do we really need all 3 lanes? I realize in some spots it gets very difficult because there are buses. The Pelham Parkway leading into Fordham Road backs up, I guess, further west of that spot from White Plains Road. But what is wrong with that idea of narrowing the roadway and handling that problem in that way?
That's really a good question because we don't know. DOT basically and DDC said they couldn't do it because it would cause too much of a tie-up in traffic. However, if you look at the current plan that's before us now, one of the 3 lanes is going to be a dedicated bus lane. So in essence, you have your 2 lanes of traffic. So it makes no sense. We felt that this was the best way to do the project. We would preserve the beauty of the parkway, we would charge the trees, and we felt it would work.
And what's interesting, as certainly an aside, it's not specifically a Bronx issue. If you go to Manhattan right now, they've cut a lot of roadways, made them much smaller because of bike lanes, and we could evaluate that in and of itself. But it seems to me in this situation that might be an option. So then they came up with a plan, and this particular plan is going to call for what?
Okay, this plan, first of all, what this plan is going to do, it's going to do a complete infrastructure overhaul. We're going to be getting new roadways, new sewers, new catch basins, new lighting, everything brand new.
I can just interject again from having traveled on it, and we all know that because of the way the catch basins are, sometimes you go down and you bump, and you always got to be careful because if you swerve a little too much, you're right, you will hit a tree.
Well, a day like today,
right?
The parkway had to be shut because it floods. And every time we get a real heavy rain, the parkway floods and they have to shut it down.
Right.
People hydroplane, another cause of accidents.
Right. So again, go back. I'm sorry, I
right.
interrupted. Go back to the plan. And Dave, hang in there. We'll give you a chance to say what you want.
The other portion of this plan calls for the installation of guardrails. And the guardrails, now, this is all a learning lesson for me also. I figured you put a guardrail up and that's all you have to do. From what the city is saying and DDC is saying, a guardrail to be effective needs a 2-foot radius to be able to absorb the crash and bounce the car off the guardrail.
So if you put a guardrail right up next to a tree,
they don't work. They're
it doesn't
ineffective.
work.
You're hitting the tree. That's what's happening. Because we do have guardrails
So you need
that were
2
installed. You need a 2-foot radius. Because of that 2-foot radius, you have to take down some trees.
We do have some pictures. Let's just show current pictures of Pelham Parkway so we can see exactly what we're talking about. So we can roll those up. So that's what the proposal is at. When would it, all things being equal, when would it get started and when would they be?
Well, they're starting the project probably in the next few weeks. The project they're going to start is the catch basins, the sewers, and the water mains. That's going to be first. What they decided, normally when you do a project like this, you clear everything off the scope of the job. Take the trees down, whatever's got to be taken down. What we
There's the rub.
What we got the city to do, and what Councilman Vaca got the city to do, was hold off in taking the trees down until the end of the project, and let's do a tree assessment. Because right now, I think the number is down to 73 trees. Originally, it was 87 trees that were coming down out of 1,219 trees on the parkway.
Right.
87.
There's a look. People can get a look. We all know what Pelham Parkway looks like, and it is lovely at this point with all of those trees.
So 87 trees were coming down.
But now we're down to
73.
Right. Let's give Dave Varen and his friends at the Pelham Parkway Preservancy a chance to speak. So, Dave, you don't like this plan?
We like the plan, and we appreciate the city coming up to do this renovation project. We need more renovation projects in the Bronx. Our problem is with the trees being removed. We're not looking to obstruct the project or prevent the project from occurring. We would like to see the project finessed in a way to preserve as many trees as possible. I mean, I live near Pelham Parkway. Everybody in the Preservation Alliance and our supporters live near the Parkway. To get a roadway of this quality with the canopy of the trees over the roadway, I mean, you have to go to Europe for something like that to have that effect. To have this in the Bronx is something unique and special, and we feel it needs to be preserved, and we're hoping that we can work with the city.
How do you deal with the issues that John Fratta just presented, that you need 2 feet if you want a guardrail? We all know that if you are driving on Pelham Parkway and, God forbid, the slightest error for any reason, could be hydroplaning, could be something more serious, like drunk driving or whatever, and really you could die or kill somebody else.
Well, you brought up a number of things I'd like to respond to. We've reached out to Senator Klein, who's been very supportive with us, and we want to thank him publicly for that, in procuring accident statistics from the 49th Precinct that cover the Parkway, and discuss how the guardrails might mitigate some of these accidents.
Specifically looking at have these trees caused them. On the other hand, though, you could say what has happened, but you don't have to be a genius to see if the tree is a half a foot from the road, it's an issue.
Well, that's why we were interested in seeing the types of accidents that were occurring on the Parkway. And over the past decade, and I think, John, you mentioned it in your op-ed piece in the Bronx Times Reporter, you mentioned there was 1,100 accidents for the past year. Yeah. We found that number not to be for the past year, but for the past decade. To have 1,100 accidents in 1 year would mean there was 2 or 3 accidents per day. So I don't know if that's an error.
You're saying it sounds like a lot.
Is
it accurate, John?
Well, those were the numbers we were given by the city. So we were given these numbers by the city.
There's an editorial by the talk show host.
Yeah, and it does seem, that's when we saw those numbers also, that really showed the seriousness of getting this this roadway redone.
It'd be a demolition
Assuming
derby.
that those numbers are accurate, but 2 a day, you're right.
It's a demolition derby, so that's not. So that, anyway, we've been accused of spreading misinformation and saying this project is only about cutting trees down for a guardrail.
Well, let me ask you something. Is this simply a safety versus environmental issue? In other words, and what the city has said publicly is that, you know what, if that's the case, as much as we all want to preserve trees, the mayor claims to want to be the environmental mayor planting 1 million trees, but we have to go for safety over environment.
Absolutely. We're not against any of these upgrades. We're not against a guardrail. There's guardrails that exist on the Parkway currently, and we were hoping they could just simply be extended. The standard that John mentioned, the 2-foot zone around a guardrail, we'd like to know what standard is being applied to our Parkway where the speed limit is 35 miles an hour. Are these highway standards? To hit a guardrail at 35 miles an hour on the Parkway is going to be a glancing blow. To necessitate the guardrail taking an impact and being able to bend 2 feet, you would have to hit it perpendicular 70 miles an hour in our view. That's not the type of accident that's going to occur on the Parkway.
Now, this picture that's up there is an interesting photo, and that's a picture of what it might look like. John, is that accurate, or is that's not accurate at all?
That is so far from the truth. Again, we're talking about taking down, if you look at the original numbers, which was 87 trees, that's 6% of the trees on the Parkway are being removed. Now, we were concerned about that number because if you're going to tell me that 20 trees are coming down on one block, that would have a serious impact, and we would fight that. But if you're talking 2 trees here, 3 there, and 3 there, it's not that much of an impact. And you have to keep in mind, we're also going to be planting 247 new trees, 4-inch diameter trees. They're going to start planting them in the next planting season. Even before one tree comes down, they're going to stop planting.
Although we all know that
small.
they'll be small, and it will take many, many years,
Absolutely.
and those trees are historic in their own way. John, do we have a process problem here? Because we've done this so many times with city projects that, number one, you and I just discussed a potential alternative so we wouldn't get into this. And number two, here we are potentially weeks away from the beginning of a project, yet there is a sizable community protest about it, and yet we're just about on our way to doing it. Has this kind of been pushed forward by people who would like to see it work out for contractors or others to kind of make it easy for them?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And I think what the problem is, there is misinformation out there. And I'll give you an example. I got an email from one of the preservation people telling me, how dare you spend $36 million to put guardrails up and take trees down?
$36 million.
Fix the damn roadway. And I'm looking at the email, lady, that's what we're doing. So, there is misinformation. Regis, in his TV show, basically misled the viewers because he said the same thing. Could you imagine they're going to spend $36 million to put guardrails up and take trees down? And, of course, you hear that. Everybody goes, what are they, out of their mind?
But you're saying that money also includes the roadway. Dave, do you believe there's a process problem? Do you think that you and your community colleagues have been left out of the process? Or and certainly John and I have talked about this literally 15 years ago, has there been enough chance for you to have input, you and your friends have input into the process?
I heard rumors about the project going back over the years. Although we've collected at some of our rallies, we've collected over 1,000 signatures on petitions, and everybody that we speak to, it's like the first time they've ever heard of it. We were concerned about this project going forward in the light of what happened on Marshall Parkway a few decades ago, in which many trees were cut down unnecessarily due to clumsy contractors or lack of oversight or an error, and we are scared that's going to happen here.
Well, this wouldn't necessarily be an error because this would be a planned
well, they're saying...
But let me just interject about the process question, John. No environmental impact statement was done. One would think you would need one if you're cutting down that many trees because there is an environmental impact of that to the community.
Not when you're doing a roadway reconstruction. The only time you need an environmental impact statement is when you're changing the character of a road.
This wouldn't change the character?
Not 6% of the trees, absolutely not. It's not going to. I mean, again, if they were all on one block, absolutely. But according to the city, there was no need for an environmental impact statement. It didn't meet the requirements for an EIS.
Dave, it looked like you were going to say something when I cut you off before. I didn't want to do that. Just going back to the process question.
Well, the city originally said, well, John said originally 200-something trees, but the community board was against that, and the city was able to narrow it down to 87, which we appreciate. And now we're hearing 70, 60 trees coming down. We don't trust necessarily those numbers from the city. When these backhoes and bulldozers start tearing up the parkway, when they park their vehicles under the trees, the healthy ones under the drip zone of the trees that can damage the roots, when they're cutting through the roadway that can damage additional roots of perfectly healthy trees. And if negative effects of that may not be apparent immediately. It may take a few years for these trees to die off.
So maybe even though according to the rule there's no environmental impact statement, it might be a way to change the ULURP process so that happens in the future. We have a number of calls. Mark from Pelham Parkway is with us. Hi, Mark. How are you? Do we have Mark? I don't hear Mark.
Hello, Gary?
Yes, there you go. Hi, Mark.
Okay,
Go.
good, I'm here.
Talk.
This is starting to smell a little bit more like the filtration plant fiasco again, and we all know how well that's gone. But I have a couple of statements to make.
Okay,
When is it legal to drive down Pelham Parkway at 60, 70, 80 miles an hour? During the Giuliani years, if you remember when they were impounding cars, they used to impound cars left and right because you'd have people driving there at 90 miles an hour.
So
my
wait,
question
it's
is
not
this. I got
legal
two
to drive
questions.
there at
It's a
that
double
speed.
set.
What's your
Those
point?
guardrails, they're going to put, well, they used to impound. You'd read all the time. You'd hear in the news. They impounded cars going down Pelham Parkway at 90 miles an hour because if you drove under Giuliani.
I understand that, but so what's your point about it?
Well, my point is,
nobody
first
here
of all-
is
first
advocating
of all,
speeding.
Here goes something. I drive down Pelham Parkway all the time. Here goes something that I've asked. Those guardrails that they're going to put out, if they're going to bounce cars off and they're going to cut a tree out to put a guardrail on, and a car bounces out that's doing 60, 70 miles an hour, law of physics clearly states
hold on one second.
of the same
Do we
weight,
need greater-
of the same object.
I got you.
Those
Do we
cars,
need greater
first of all, are going to bounce into cars moving down
Mark,
the road.
hang on you. Do we
And
need
the other
greater
question is, how
enforcement
many
on
of
traffic?
these jobs are going there are going to be Bronx?
Jane, you're going to have to cut him off because I can't hear a word down here. Do we need greater enforcement for traffic?
Look, you could always use greater enforcement. We do have a steady police car on the parkway giving out speeding tickets.
But if you do that, then would that potentially get in the way of the need for cutting down some of these trees? Or
Absolutely
this?
not. You still have to do the project. You have to put the guardrails up anyway to make the road safe.
Okay. Mark, you got to do a little more listening because otherwise we're going to lose you, okay? It sounds like he's gone now. All right, let's go to George from the Preservation Alliance, I guess one of your colleagues. Hi, George. How are you?
Yeah, how do you do?
We're doing good. Thanks for calling.
Hi to everybody, to Mr. Frada and to Dave.
Hi, George.
Hey, George, go to
I
him.
just want to interject here that it's a known thing that the accident location information system, the data provided to us by Senator Klein's office, official data, shows that 2%, that's 2 out of 100 of every accident, even involve a tree. 70% of the accidents are at intersections. They're car-to-car impacts. The rest involve other things. So trees are really a minimal item here. And that's not to say we don't want guardrails. We do, even if it saves one person.
But you know, the question...
trees are not the cause of the accidents. Speeding,
George, the
road
question,
rage, and the rest of it.
The question that I had, which I raised before, thank you so much for the call, and you got, maybe Dave, you want to address this. The fact is, you want to do a little prevention here too, just because it hasn't. Listen, again, I repeat that I've driven down Pelham Parkway countless times, and there are times I say, gee whiz, that's pretty close to the
Well, this
roadway.
goes back to the misinformation. The other side, the city is presenting this as a safety versus trees issue. We are saying we can have safety and trees. Mark was calling, saying the cars are speeding 90 miles an hour. Studies have shown that trees, nature has a calming effect on drivers. The fact that you're saying you want to be careful when you drive down Pelham Parkway due to the trees shows that there's a natural calming effect. If we lose the trees, put up the guardrails, smooth out the roadway, the speeds are going to go up. And AAA has done studies that if you increase speeds, you increase accidents and the severity of those accidents. So it's not
It is
necessary.
interesting, while maybe that picture might not be totally accurate, but the thought of guardrails, and if you smooth out the roadway, you might get people to say, well, you know, this is a speedway, and you might increase the speed.
That's our concern. And like George was saying, I have the statistics here also. Most of the accidents are at intersections, they're car on car, or involve, there's an idea that trees are killing people. There have been some fatalities on Pelham Parkway in the past decade, which is unfortunate. According to the Daily News, both the fatalities were cars striking pedestrians. All right, it's not cars hitting trees and killing
you
drivers.
disagree with that?
Definitely not. The fatalities that happen on the Parkway were people going into trees. We have a nurse that's still in a coma from Jacoby. She's in a coma, I forgot how many years. Her car, she got cut off. Her car went into a tree. We had another individual from Throg's Neck. His car went into a tree. He got killed. So, but you're right. Most of the accidents on the Parkway are car versus car and intersection. But again, if we could save one life, you could always replant the tree. You can't replant the life.
Although some people would say that these trees are not replaceable. I wanted to ask about another environmental aspect of this. The trees do a lot of absorption, and we certainly have a flooding problem in low-lying areas and on the low-lying areas on east and west of Pelham Parkway. If you take away 87 trees, maybe that is a percentage of the whole number of trees, you are without a doubt going to impact that. Again, isn't that something that should require an environmental study?
No. First of all, they're going to be putting larger catch basins in, more sewers in. We have areas on the Parkway that have no sewers. So now they are going to be, I forgot how many sewers the plan calls for installing. And it's not just installing the sewer.
Well, we're not talking about sewers here. We're talking about people's basements who may live on Morris Park Avenue or Williamsbridge and on Allerton and some of the outlying areas.
We've never had a problem with flooding
Well,
in
you
the
take
houses.
down some of those
the
trees,
flooding
you
that
might.
we do have, the trees that are coming down are trees that are right up against the roadway.
Right.
Those are the trees that are coming down. The flooding that we have on the Parkway is the roadway. It's not where the house is, not on the service road. It's the roadway.
Did you want to weigh in on that? I saw you nodding your head because I would take another call otherwise.
Again, the 87 number, the 73 number of trees coming down, we don't trust these numbers at all. As the project goes on, we believe that number is going to go far higher. The trees have health benefits. They absorb air pollution from the passing vehicles. There's a lot of asthma in the area. This is where an environmental impact might come into play. If it's going to be higher than 87 trees, there's more air pollution. That needs to be looked at.
Let's run to the telephone now, and your chairman is on the phone, Dominic Castori. Hello, Dominic. Thanks so much for calling in.
How are you?
Good.
I'm a little disgusted with what I hear.
Okay.
I would like to ask that young fellow that's there sitting next to John, how would he feel if we took one of his sons or daughter or mother or father and took and saved a tree, but used them as a death-defying
you're
thing
saying
to
it
do?
is a trade-off.
Would you like
I
to
asked
see?
earlier between
we
safety.
know there's accidents there. We didn't make it up.
Well,
We didn't make
Dominic,
this
let
up.
me ask you
I've been
this.
fighting this since 1986.
Yeah, Dominic, let me
I'm
ask
a chairman
you this.
for 30 years there.
Let me ask you this, because obviously, certainly, we don't want to talk about anybody's family members being hurt. Isn't there a compromise position? And if the proposal that I heard from the beginning, that maybe you make the roadway narrower, shouldn't the community board have fought for that rather than to say, you know what, let's compromise and get rid of the trees? Shouldn't you have stuck with that and stuck the city with that proposal?
We did try to fight that. In fact, we had an assemblyman or a senator against us on that. And I would like to tell you his name, but I didn't want to get him embarrassed.
That's up to you.
He now regrets it, but that's besides the point.
Dominic, thank you so much.
Well, I'd like to respond to that.
Sure, we will.
Since he's calling out my family here, I'd like to first of all say hello to my wife Liz and my children Charlie, Maggie, and Henry.
Liz, Charlie,
who are
Henry.
probably in bed already. First of all, I find that unbelievable. He just said that about my kids being killed on the Parkway. We are not against a guardrail being installed. We are asking the city to please be careful and considerate of the environment as they proceed with this project. We are hoping that they can finesse the project, finesse the guardrail, so the trees are not unnecessarily being damaged or destroyed.
One thing I do want to interject, and Mark had brought it up, they took down hundreds of trees in Marshall Park on the Marshall Park golf course for the filtration plant. They took down hundreds of trees in McCombsdam Park for Yankee Stadium. I didn't hear anybody from Pelham Parkway complaining at that point.
Well, that's it. When it happens in your own backyard, you get interested.
I think we all appreciate that you said
Can I
that.
just say something?
Of course, sure.
First of all, they're doing a tree assessment now. Before they even take down one tree, what the elected officials have requested, and the community board, is for DDC and parks. We have an arborist that's going to be part of this project. They're going to do a tree-by-tree assessment. And the borough president...
But you see, that means that this project in the shape that it is already on its way. That doesn't get into the dialogue that I wanted to establish, that maybe there's a different way of handling the project. Having an arborist determine whether it's 10, 20, 30, or 40, or 50 trees, then you're already knowing you're cutting down some trees.
At this point, the project is ready to go forward. So there's no moving back on this.
You're saying that's the best compromise you can
now,
get.
However, you have to keep in mind that I think it's 35 or 37 trees are coming down at the request of the Parks Department because these trees are diseased and ready to fall down. Out of that number, out of that 73, 37 are coming down.
Now, we could go on. We're almost running out of time. I know that number had been disputed in some of the media reports I read, that some of those trees might not be as unhealthy as they claim.
Well, exactly. We had a severe storm blow through last week. There was tornadoes in Brooklyn and Queens, which is unbelievable.
It didn't go to Pelham Parkway.
But we had high winds. We had high winds. Not one branch of one of those trees fell off.
It certainly could. I mean, it came through the Bronx on other
I bet
occasions.
DDC would have been very happy if the tornado came through
Dave,
Pelham Park.
for people who want to weigh in and support your position, how do they do that?
They can email me at bluedave2100 at yahoo.com, or they can join us on Facebook. We have a group, the Pelham Parkway Preservation Alliance.
Okay, and for you, simply contact the community board.
I just want to point out that the borough president did request, he wants an answer for every tree that's coming down, why they have to come down, and see if there's something we could do to mitigate that.
So it sounds to me like, and I'll get the final word in, that that's a nice thing. It's too late for the real question, and that is, was this the right project and done it in the right way? We established that at the top of the show. Plenty to talk about when these things come up. Dave Varen, thank you so much.
Gary, thank you.
And thanks for your concern about your community, regardless of what people agree or disagree. That's so important in the Bronx. And John, thank you for your years of service and participation in our dialogue.
Thank you.
Folks, if you have further comments or questions on anything you heard on tonight's show or anything going on in the Bronx, then email them to us at BronxTalk@hotmail.com, and we'll read those on the air during a future edition of our program. Archives of Bronx Talk are available at blip.tv. Just search for Bronx Talk. A lot of good shows coming up. What do you hear? Next week, a fun show about Bronx books and Bronx authors. The week after, on the 11th, we'll talk about the prospects for the Mary Mitchell Community Center, which is on the chopping block. And then on the 18th, we'll celebrate our 16th anniversary of our TV show with Borough President Ruben Diaz Jr. We'll talk about this issue as well. Bronx Talk, Monday nights at 9 here on BronxNet Cablevision Channel 67, Verizon Fios 33. Special thanks, of course, to producer Jane Folloro, our director Michael Arias, who I think is not even here tonight. Whoever's pinch hitting for him, to Chris, who's pinch hitting for him, and the cast of thousands up in the booth, and to you, good night. Thank you.